Shadow Minister for Education, the Shadow Minister for Women, and the Federal Member for Sydney. During her time in Parliament, she has served as the Deputy Leader of the Opposition and the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Development. She was a Cabinet Minister in the Gillard and Rudd governments and has been a Minister for a number of portfolios including health, medical research, housing, human services, social inclusion and the status of women. Tanya grew up in Sutherland Shire of Sydney and is the daughter of migrants from Slovenia. Tanya lives in Sydney with her husband Michael and their 3 children, Anna, Joseph and Lewis.
Thank you so much. And I want to start tonight by acknowledging that we're meeting on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respect to elders past and present. And I want to apologise to all of you before we get into the speech. I'm so sorry I was late. I was sitting on the tarmac in Melbourne watching the clock very anxiously, but there's nothing you can do about mechanical problems. I want to thank the other 3 candidates for turning up tonight. It's wonderful that they've turned up. It's always very disappointing that the Liberals never do. I also want to thank the Alexandria Residents Action Group, the Friends of Erskineville and Red Watch for putting on this great piece of local democracy every election. Thank you to all of the volunteers who've made tonight possible. I want to acknowledge Councillor Linda Scott from the City of Sydney Council as well. Now, I want to very quickly go through some policy detail tonight because I think you've all heard the headlines about Labor's policies on climate change, on housing affordability and on the Federal Integrity or Anti-Corruption Commission, but I want to go a little bit deeper. First of all, on the Integrity Commission, we do agree that it has to be an Integrity Commission with real teeth. And we don't call it a retrospective Integrity Commission. We say that if something is wrong today, the fact that you find it out in a year's time or 2 years' time does not make the Integrity Commission retrospective. It just means it's doing its job. We've got a proposal from Scott Morrison that would be weaker than any state integrity commission in the country, and there's a reason for that. It's because half his front bench are in witness protection. Sports frauds, car park frauds, Alan Tudge has had to pay $500,000 to a member of staff, and apparently the Prime Minister and the government don't know what that's for. He's fit to be a minister, and he doesn't have to explain why he has to pay $500,000 to a member of staff. Nothing to see here. There's a reason that Scott Morrison doesn't want an integrity commission with teeth. It's because his front bench are the reason we need a federal integrity commission. Now, talking about climate change and energy policy, I just want to run through some of the things that we've already committed to. We want to upgrade the electricity grid to fixed transmission. That's a $20 billion proposal to rewire the nation so that we can make sure that our national grid is capable of taking in the renewables that we're building around the country, make EVs cheaper, adopt the safeguard mechanism and drive emissions down to net zero by 2050. Allocate $3 billion to invest in green metals like steel, alumina and aluminium. Provide direct financial support to improve energy efficiency. Roll out 85 solar banks around Australia. Install 400 community batteries across the country. Make the Commonwealth Public Service demonstrate leadership by reducing their own emissions to net zero by 2030. Invest in 10,000 new energy apprenticeships and a new energy skills program. Do real-world fuel testing, work with large businesses to help them transition to net zero and take the opportunities of the new energy economy, and re-establish the role of the Climate Change Authority. We would reduce emissions by 43% by 2030. We would bid to co-host the future COP here in Australia with our Pacific neighbours, deliver a $200 million climate and infrastructure partnership with Indonesia, commission the Director General of National Intelligence and the Secretary of the Defence Department to undertake a risk assessment of the implications of climate change for national security, and convert the Kurri Kurri plant to green hydrogen. That's just a number of things that we've already announced. I want to talk to you about housing. I know a little bit about housing. I was the housing minister that built 21,600 new public housing dwellings and the first 35,000 National Rental Affordability Scheme dwellings until Tony Abbott came in and stopped both of those programs. We were going to build 100,000 National Rental Affordability Scheme projects and Scott Morrison killed it. I started 80 new homelessness services when I was the housing minister, including some in this electorate. We built Common Ground in Camperdown, we built the facility across from Redfern Park for frail aged homeless people. We absolutely know that under this government, over the last decade, homelessness has got worse, it's harder to rent and it's harder to buy. And we have policies to address all three of those things, including building an extra 20,000 public housing dwellings, plus 10,000 affordable rental properties, plus investing $100 million into emergency accommodation for women and children escaping domestic violence, plus investing for older single women, the fastest growing group of people moving into homelessness, and our veterans that are disproportionately represented in homelessness figures around Australia. We know we also have to help with rental properties, so we've got the 10,000 properties aimed at people who are key workers, and of course the policy that we announced on the weekend to help 10,000 people with shared equity every year. Shared equity is something that already happens at a state level in a couple of states and certainly around the world, and it's a recognition that for many people there is a barrier to saving a deposit. In 2021, house prices in Australia grew 11 times faster than wages. So every dollar you save is losing value against the property that you want to buy as your first home as you're saving it. By introducing a shared equity scheme, we can particularly help people who have, for example, split up after divorce. They don't have enough money to buy a whole place on their own. If the government takes a 40% stake in that property, it reduces the monthly repayments on your mortgage, it reduces the size of the deposit you need. It's a way of helping more people into their own home sooner. This is something that Scott Morrison's backed in the past, but of course now that Labor suggested, he's not going to touch it with a barge pole. I just want to finish by saying this. In the last 30 seconds I've got, I don't take this seat for granted. I don't take your support for granted. I'm delighted that all of you have turned up tonight because I know you don't take democracy for granted either. It's a real pleasure to be here with you and I'm looking forward to the discussion.